Okay. Okay. This has been the most aggravating thing, I swear to God. Okay. Okay. Yes. That's fine. There we go. Holy freaking moly. That was an adventure. Okay. Alright. Let's get this hooked back up real quick. Okay. Alright. There we go. Okay. So. All right. Well, hopefully I'm back and I'm actually back permanently. Let's fingers crossed on that. For those who weren't there for the whole middle bit there, apparently YouTube decided that my channel, uh, my stream decided that it was made for kids. I have no idea why. I did not set it that way, and yet that is exactly what was happening. So my deepest apologies. Okay. God, that was annoying. Not entirely certain as to why that happened, but that was annoying. Okay. So, back to the lake here. I think this is pretty good for the most part. Just gotta make sure that that's all even. You have got to be flippin' kidding me. Why, YouTube? Why do you hate me? Why? Okay, it is what it is. I'll figure this whole thing out here in just a sec. Okay, there we go. One more time. Okay. I think that's it. Okay. Finally. Okie dokie. There we go. Okay. That's one of the things about this particular piece of the model. This is going to be the most aggravating part of building this thing. Is going to be gluing this together and then separating the shin from the thigh. But I think we can handle it, no problem. It's just going to take a little bit of elbow grease. I've done it before. I can do it again easily. I don't drop my spear on the floor. Okay. Now, I find that the trick to this is not to necessarily slather on a bunch of Tamiya all over the place. You just need to secure it enough from bonding the two sides together. And then from there, we reinforce the bond on the outside of the model. And this also serves the multi-purpose of helping smooth out the areas that I've been scraping with my hobby knife. Okay, let's try that. You know, Ninjan was right. I don't know why I ever doubt the professional, but you can do your best, or you can do it on camera, but you can't do your best on camera, because this is a very different experience. Normally I hold this like super close to my face. You'd think I was as nearsighted as a mole, but I'm starting to get the hang of this. Okay, that's one leg done. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so I'll go ahead and cut this one out. These God Hand nippers, I swear, nippers, just so we're clear, are pretty freaking amazing, I have to admit. Okay. Actually, now that I'm using this for now, let's go put those back in that. I'm shocked you don't see more people cut themselves with their X-Acto knives, especially when a lot of the tips say to cut towards you. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know, it won't really show up on camera, I don't think, but I have cut the dog mess out of my thumb recently. And I have to admit, it is the most annoying thing. I don't think you can see it very well. I've got about 5 or 6 different cuts on the face of my thumb. And the reason for that is I've been cutting towards myself like they oftentimes advise you to do. But I've learned that the biggest trick for that is honestly just make sure when you're cutting towards yourself that you're not cutting through anything too thick. I have a fresh blade on this, and I've almost gotten myself today already. That was earlier though, it wasn't on camera, but principle still applies. If you're going to do this, just make sure that you're not cutting through anything too thick, and if there's any kind of resistance at all, to just, you can either saw it back. I like to rock it. Oh, I'm yelling into your ear. I like to rock it back and forth, kind of like one of these maneuvers to cut through the thick stuff if I need to, or just do the smart thing and get your nippers. I'm going to be honest with you. They are your best tool when doing something like this. I have to admit. Go. Do I play Kill Team? I've wanted to play Kill Team for quite some time. I'm actually working on building a Kill Team. I have an exaction squad I'm putting together. Have not, however, managed to play a game just yet, but I really look forward to it. The team I've been working on is actually going to be a kit bash and a proxy for the Kazakhin Kill Team. So, my favorite faction is the Imperial Knights, and I've been wanting to have infantry that I can field alongside them. So I got the exaction squad for the armor. I'm going to take some Skitarii Vanguard heads and some weaponry and kit bash it with the Krieg Kill Team weaponry, and then run them as a Kazakhin Kill Team. So they'll look like a, I don't know, like an archaic, almost kind of like Victorian / steampunk knight. I think it looked really cool. Do you play? And if so, what kill team do you run? Also, sorry for yelling in your ear. Mike's like right next to my face, so I apologize. There it is. Don't know why that piece in particular was the biggest pain in the neck. I have to admit, Kill Team does seem like it would be a lot of fun. I got a buddy of mine who has a team of, I think it's Pathfinders for the town. He's excited to get those finished up and actually start doing some gaming with those. He also has Kriegs, and I think Necrons, I think. I forget what the Age of Sigmar equivalent of that is. I think it's Warcry. Been trying to get my wife into that. She really likes the look of the Ideneth Deepkin in Age of Sigmar Sea Elves, mostly because they have a giant turtle. But they also have like sharks that she really, really, really wants to paint up as orcas, and I think that would look really nice. If only I can get her to sit down for more than 15 minutes and actually build a model with me. I might get her there one of these days, but I'll let you know. How far is 2030 again? I think we're getting pretty close here. That's unfortunate. Cat ran through and knocked one of my models off, so now... Oh yeah, it snapped, like, clean in half. Holy crap. Well, that is unfortunate. At least none of the important bits seem to have broken off, so... Looks like I'm building 2 knights instead of 1. How much money do I think I've spent on Warhammer? Oh god. Man. Well, I can tell you what, this army alone, I think I've gotten... Let's see, I've got my 3 Quaestorus Knights, my Dominus, my 2 Cerastus, my 4 Armigers, man, at like $13.50 minimum, and that's not even with the big toy. My wife got me a Porphyrion as like a thank you / early birthday present. So, I mean, with that, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,100 or so. Of course, that's over the course of a few years, so it's not been all at once or anything. But I will say this. If we're also including the paints and the utensils and all that, I don't even want to think about it. I got an airbrush, a spray booth that someone bought for me as a birthday present / Christmas present. That was my mother and my grandfather, which was really nice. I mean, airbrush alone, $300, $350. I bought $300 worth of paints. If we're going hobby stuff included, I'm going to say about $3,500 in total over the course of about 10 years, I'd say. I could stop dropping stuff. That would be nice. The single greatest random Christmas gift I've ever gotten. I forget the name of the game. White Elephant, I think. Basically Secret Santa, but not for targeted people. Little desk fan. Helps suck up all the plastic dust, which is invaluable. Alright. Let's see if we can fix the Preceptor. Out of curiosity, Lord Nerd, do you collect? Do you play any kill team? You do any 40K or anything like that? Don't know what I was expecting there. There's nothing to reinforce it, just the gravity and melted plastic. Okie dokie. You know, that's really just the crux of it. Funnily enough, about 5 years ago, I dragged my best friend, kicking and screaming, into the hobby. Against his will, as long with one of my other good friends, and now I think he spent way too much money on the hobby already. I think he spent about $10,000 on the hobby, but I've managed to drag them into the hobby with me, which has been a blessing as much as it is a curse. So we're actually just starting to get into it for gearing up for 11th edition, and we're actually going to be playing together for the first time. Everyone's just kind of been busy, and it's been a slow grind to get everything put together as far as for the army goes. So I haven't played in 15-ish years, I think. I was originally introduced to Warhammer, I was about, 10 years old or so. My dad took me to a game store. We were looking for some board game, a specific board game, I can't remember. And I think it was about 10 years old or so, and there was this older gentleman. My dad was in line, and there was this older gentleman who was actually like in the process of building, at the time, Warhammer fantasy models. I didn't know that at the time. It was my first real exposure to it, and that was kind of one of the first and only times I'd ever seen fantasy models like that, and it spoke to me on some kind of primal level. I just kind of became obsessed with it. He was a very patient guy. He just answered a whole bunch of annoying questions from an autistic 10-year-old, so he had the patience of a saint. But then, fast forward a few years, there's a pastor friend of my dad's who played Warhammer 40k, and it was my first introduction to Space Marines. And weirdly enough, a different pastor, but who knew the same guy, he played Warhammer with me. That would have been 2009, I think. So what would that be? 6th edition, 7th edition? And it's the only time I've ever played. I've played 2 games with him. I won both of those games. So, you know, Philip, if you're out there, suck it. But that's one of the only times I've ever played. I've always just been really into the universe, and I've only recently had the bug to get in and actually play. I say recently. It's been about, I don't know, 5-6 years that I really, really wanted to play. I had a dream, actually, for the longest time. I wanted to get the Acastus Knight Porphyrion. For whatever reason, that's like my favorite model. I love that model to death. And the greatest thing about it is like, no one had ever brought that kind of model to a tournament before, like a big, big tournament. So I said, when I saw it, I want to buy that model, and I want to go to the largest Warhammer tournament in the world, which at the time was the Las Vegas Open. I think just this last year, the Las Vegas Open is now the second largest. I think the London Grand Tournament is the largest tournament now. But no one had ever brought a Porphyrion to the Las Vegas Open, which I just thought was cool. And I was like, I want to be the first guy to bring one. Sadly, even though I got the model, last year's tournament, someone actually managed to bring a Porphyrion. So they made a world's first, and I didn't quite get to do so. But my wife bought me the model as a surprise and a thank you, along with my dad and my sister, as a thank you for helping take care of her in the house while she was recovering from surgery. So I've got this big box with an $800 model in it that's like 3-4 kilos, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of, with just filled with thick, heavy resin that I am super excited to actually get into and build here the next couple weeks. And my goal is to go to a lot of the local game stores, do a few pickup games, learn how to play the game again with 11th edition coming out, and then try my hand at playing a bunch of local tournaments until I feel comfortable enough with the game, and then go to the LVO and still participate with that model. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it this year, but I'd still love to do so. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Have you tried going to any local game stores and doing any pickup games or anything? Because honestly, most of my experiences with local game stores have been just absolutely wonderful. So, I went this last Wednesday. Ooh, longest I've spent painting one mini. Probably, the last mini I painted that was a big mini was the Hecaton Land Fortress for the Leagues of Votan. I think I spent about 30 hours painting it, but one, it doesn't look very good. I was doing white armor and I had no idea what I was doing, so most of that was me fixing my own mistakes. But yeah, about 30. I went with a white armor with the black accents and then gold and purple on the mini, and I just could not make that white look good, no matter what I tried. And then the black was just got everywhere on the white armor, and so I spent like a good half of that just going back over and fixing the mistakes I made. I still have it somewhere. I don't know where I ended up putting that Hecaton Land Fortress. Love to go back and finish my Leagues of Votan army, but I really, really wanted to build some knights. What about you? You said you collect. What armies do you collect? Or kill teams, either way. Do I have any of the old metal minis? Oh, no, I wish I did. At one point in time I did. Someone had given me an old metal grot from like 3rd edition of Warhammer Fantasy, and I don't know what happened to it. I lost it when I moved, and I have not been able to find it, and it's so sad. I love them. I think they look goofy as hell, but there's just something charming about those older minis. But that was the only one I ever had, and I don't know whatever happened to it. I lost it about 5 years ago, and I have not been able to find it since, and it's really saddening, because I think there's so few of them now left in the world. What about you? You got any of those older ones? Someone is texting me right now, and I don't know why, but I cannot answer because my phone is my webcam. Oh, really? What was your first mini that you got? most annoying things about this is trying to hide the seam here. And the only solution I've been able to find is to squeeze it as hard as I possibly can until the melted plastic seeps through. Oh, okay. Okay. Gotta start us in. Angels of Death versus Death Guard. Death Guard. Okay. It sounds like it could have been... It sounds like the launch box for... Is it 9th edition? Maybe? Is it the Ultramarines versus the Death Guard? It's cool though. I mean, my friend Josh, the one I said spent like 10 grand on minis, he actually got a whole bunch of Death Guard too. His whole thing has been he loves the Death Guard. He loves the Death Guard and Dark Angels. And funnily enough, I actually started a tradition by accident. For Christmas one year, I actually got him Mortarion for his Death Guard forces. And I don't know, I guess after that, he like expressed an interest in getting World Eaters. And so again, like a year later, I got him Angron to go with his World Eaters he wanted to do. And at that point, I was like, well, I know what I got to get you for Christmas next year, and that was Magnus the Red. And of course, that's exactly what I got him. So it kind of just became this tradition where I'd buy him a Primarch to be a Christmas gift. The funny thing is, 3 days after I got him the Magnus the Red, he ended up getting, Fulgrim was released. And I was like, well, at least I know what I'm getting you next year. Funnily enough, his wife bought him Fulgrim for Christmas this year, so she got him a Demon Primarch. And I think to date, he now has all of them. He has Lionel Johnson, Rabute Gilliman, Mortarion, Angron, Fulgrim, and Magnus. I guess we'll see if we're getting a Perturabo or a Leman Russ this year, but I swear if he gets a Leman Russ before I do, I am going to lose my mind. Leman Russ is my favorite Primarch, and he's the reason I even got into the hobby to begin with. So, anyway, all that to be said, I think Death Guard are really cool. I think they're a fantastic faction. And if I did Chaos Space Marines, I'd probably want to do Death Guard, because I think they're pretty cool. Mortarion, he's okay. Model looks great, character-wise. Did I lose it? No? No, it's still going. That's good. Interesting. Okay. The stream dropped for a second, but it's still live, and YouTube says we're healthy, so it looks like we're good. This is the most annoying thing about doing Knights, in my opinion. Because I can't ever do anything the easy way. I have to do things the difficult way because I hate the pose that they naturally come in. So what I'm trying to do, because I don't have a hobby saw attachment for my X-Acto knife, I'm actually going to try to separate the shin from the thigh. I've managed to do it successfully twice on my other Questoris Knights, but it is the longest process. Ooh, I am bleeding. Oh, okay. I find by doing it this way, by taking a fresh knife and using the back of the blade as I scrape, seems to do a pretty good job of not cutting into the model that I want to preserve and take away plastic that I want to remove, because I don't want to carve into the shin. I want to primarily carve into the connective area. There we go. It's starting to come loose. Starting to. Should be able, if I'm careful. And careful. Yeah! There we go. Almost. Come on. There we go. Not the cleanest work I've done, but not the worst I've done either. Perfect. Now, let's make a mess. I love that so much. There it is. One of the greatest Christmas gifts my wife ever got me is the Fantic. I love this thing so much. It makes doing the hobby stuff that much easier to do, in my opinion. Okay, let's try not to make a ton of noise in the microphone this way, but, well, it'll make some noise. Now, the problem with doing this is not only do you run the risk of it skipping, which it has done to me before and damaged part of the model I don't want to do. It's not an incredibly precise tool for fine adjustment work, but if you have a good hand for it, believe it or not, this is one of the most invaluable tools in your arsenal for hobby working, in my opinion. I am hashtag not sponsored. I just really enjoy the Fantic. It is a fantastic little tool. I'm also trying not to blare it in the microphone because this thing can get a little loud sometimes, depending on what I'm trying to chew through. But this thing has changed my life when it comes to like hobby doing anything. You need battle damage, this thing's got you. You need to grind down a bunch of plastic, this thing has you in spades. I've done this with an X-Acto knife, and I've done this with the Fantic, and let me tell you, the Fantic gets much better results, and it chews through a lot less of the model than you'd expect it to. You just got to be careful with it. There's a learning curve, and I have had to learn that learning curve the hard way.
Not that he needs it, but shout out to Ninjon. Holy crap, this thing has changed my life. Okay, so that's the shin mostly done. Let's get this thigh. Okay. The problem with this part is you need to grind this down without grinding into the track of the thigh for the shin. Which is easier said than done. That's most of it done, I think. Ooh, that's most of it done for the thigh piece here. I'm going to have to go back over, polish it down and everything, but most of the plastic I wanted to clear is done. So, and that's the other thing. Plastic dust gets everywhere when you use the Fantig. I'm usually covered in it, all over my shirt and everything. So, I find just a little bit of something to help keep your workspace clean helps quite a bit. Again, not sponsored, but got this for Christmas. It's a fantastic little tool to have. Okay. Gotta figure out what kind of pose I want to put this defender into, because I've been fairly lucky with my other knights as far as like what poses I want to do. And they're usually based off of other Warhammer models. So, I built my Knight Errant. A lot of work I put into this to make this custom pose. Took apart the leg, separated the shin from the thigh to kind of get this high-knee kind of stance going. And for those of you who might be fans of the Lieutenant Titus model that came out with Space Marine 2, this is the pose that I based it off of. I think it looks really nice. You know, you don't see a knight sprinting straight at you very much, and I think this is a rather interesting way to approach the model. But for those of you who like the Leagues of Votann, the call where he's standing on the tactical rock and pointing, this is the pose I kind of based that off of. And it's really hard to tell because I can't get the camera to focus on it very well, but I had to completely break apart all of the fingers to make this happen and attach plastic rod in between the knuckles, and so it still looked like it meant to. And I'm really pleased with how this came out. When he gets his base, he's going to have a tactical rock he's going to be standing on, and I had to pose the toes in preparation for the tactical rock. But I think this looks really, really nice. I'm very excited to see when it gets painted up. Paint scheme's going to be a little unconventional. Right? It does sound like a nightmare. Oh my gosh. I took this Preceptor to the local game store. I had so many people staring at this going, this is going to look terrifying on the table. And I have to agree. Charging at you with a chainsaw, I mean, this right here is already as intimidating as heck. And I think it's just going to be crazy good. I cannot wait to get this painted. It's going to look really nice. But that being said, I have to figure out what pose I want to put this defender into. I don't have a model I've based it off of for its pose, whereas I have with the Preceptor and the Knight Errant. So I just think I'd separate both legs and then just repose them and come up with a really interesting pose that way. It's probably going to be the best bet. Oh, absolutely. Well, firstly, welcome. Glad to have you here. Sorry for blowing out your ears. Sorry. I'm still getting used to the new microphone. Honestly, man, you picked a perfect time to get into the hobby. I mean, even if you don't play, like, they're coming out with a whole bunch of new models soon. for a whole bunch of different new factions. There's the start of a new edition, which means there's going to be a ton of new lore coming out. And I just think Warhammer is so freaking cool. I've been in the hobby I've been a Warhammer fan, I should say, for about 20 years now. And it's really freaking cool. I think it's one of the most interesting universes that are out there. It's so unique and so... I can't keep saying the word cool, but it's so cool, you know. And I just love some of the models that are out there for each of the factions. You got a particular faction you're eyeing right now that you like are super interested in as far as like lore and whatnot? Okay. Alright. Let's try to separate this one. One of the most annoying parts, but it all comes together in the end, which is always really nice. Eldari and Necron lore, I have to admit, I think that's really interesting stuff. The Necron are so cool to me. I have never been a huge elf fan, especially space elves. I always thought the Eldari were pretty basic and pretty boring, until I actually started looking into it, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'm just the asshole, because this is some really interesting stuff. Like Prince Uriel and the Corsairs, the Drukhari. Sure, you know, on face value, you're like, oh, okay, well, they were an ancient empire at some point, but there's some really cool stuff going on with them. Oop, that was almost bad. Okay, still got a tip on there, that's good. Right? Well, you know, like I said, man, you're coming at the perfect time. I mean, you got Cavil's supposed 40K series going to be coming out at some point in the near future, and it's looking like it might be really interesting. The video games are getting a lot better. I mean, Space Marine 2 has clearly changed the direction that Games Workshop wanted to go with it. I'm very excited. The strategy games coming out, Dawn of War 4 and 40K Total War. Oh, it's going to be so nice. If you haven't yet, there's a lot of really interesting lore, but you can look at what's canon, but my favorite stuff to do is look at the stuff that GW used to do in the past, right? That they used to do in the past that clearly they've gone away from. One of my favorite facets is the Imperial Knights started as, and I kid you not, they started off as dinosaur herders, created by the Eldar. They were literally giant robots designed to herd dinosaurs called megasaurs, which were used as gigantic food sources for early human and early Eldar colonies. So their whole job was to walk around and guide these dinosaurs around, which I think is the funniest thing. And then clearly GW's like, no, we can't do that. So then they leaned into, well, instead of dinosaur herders, now they're just glorified Voltron, which, again, is very interesting and really funny to me, because now they've clearly decided, like, no, that's too cringe, we can't do that, we have to go towards a more serious route. But I want to bring back the dinosaur herders, if I'm being honest. What was I saying? Oh yeah, if you're also into Eldar lore, have you looked into the Exodites yet? The supposed wood elves of the 40K universe. They are really interesting, and I hear they're supposed to be getting a kill team soon, which will be really cool to see half-naked elves with bows and arrows fighting Space Marines. I cannot wait to see what that looks like. There we go. I think pretty much, yes, we're at that point. There we go. Oh, give me 1 second. Okay. Absolutely, you should. If there's anything I can do for the Warhammer universe, it's make more Exodite fans. Because they're so fascinating, in my opinion. Also, sorry about that. I had to bring the dogs in. They decided that they were done being outside, so... If you hear any loud clanging or a cat sounding like it's being mauled to death, it's just the puppy. Nice. Very nice. You know, have you, I don't know what YouTube channels that you've been watching for a lot of the lore stuff, but if you want, like, beginning-friendly people to introduce you to the hobby, I cannot recommend enough a channel called Pancreas No Work, who mostly handles, like, tabletop stuff, but he does introductory lore things, which is really nice, and Adeptus Ridiculous. I wouldn't say they're the best comprehensive lore channels, but they're really good at introducing people to factions and concepts, where then you can find people that you do like that do a deeper dive on the topic. Good. Very good. I have been waiting for Pancreas No Work for about 2 years to finally do a Karajan Overlord's Do or Don't. I am still waiting for my Steampunk Sky Dwarves to get their Do or Don't video. If you're watching this Pancreas No Work, please, I beg of you. Lore Keeper's Librarian. You know what? I've watched a couple of videos, and I have to agree with you. They're really, really good. That and Tales from the Black Library, both of them, I think, do a pretty good job. There we go. Again, not sponsored, but Fantic, I love your product. You are welcome. They are fantastic channels. I've watched quite a few. I like a lot. I've been on a super massive Warhammer YouTube binge here lately. My hyperfixation has become an autistic obsession at this point. So I've been like trying to find as many Warhammer content creators that I can watch and listen to in the background while I'm at work. And I have to admit, Wes Hammer does a good job. Depends on the topic. Oh yeah. So the Fantic. Yes, basically it's a super lightweight Dremel. It's got filing bits on it. It's got drill bits you can use. It's got sanding bits, and my favorite one is it has a couple of polishing bits as well. They're a little rough on plastic, but it's completely changed how I play the game. USB-C charged on the top. It's very simple. Got a little switch on the side to turn it on, and you can cycle between 5 different speeds, which is awesome. There's 2 models out right now. This one is the Model 1. It's $60 on Amazon, and that was without a sale. My wife got it for me for Christmas. She wanted to get me the $100 one. I don't need it. This is the best hobby tool you can ever own, in my opinion. It saves me so much time and so much work. I'll show you. So my Preceptor here, one thing I absolutely hate is magnetizing my models. They are a pain in the ass because the magnets I have are two different sizes. One's way too big, even for my largest drill bit, and it's the smallest magnet. This is the medium-sized one. I normally have to use a hobby tool, and I carve the crap out of the plastic. But with this, not only does it make this much faster, because this would normally take me like 20-30 minutes with a knife. It took me maybe 5 minutes. Just there's a carving bit in there, just carved the circle out to the size I needed, polished it with a filing bit, and then went back in with super glue, and it was done. 5-minute stops. I left this in another city with my best friend by accident, and he threatened that if I didn't take it home, I was never going to see it again, because he loves this thing. So, if you find yourself needing another hobby tool and you've got 60 bucks that you can just spend, Fantic. It is a fantastic little tool. Magnets. That's a good question. Let me see if I have... 1 second here. I think I brought it with me. Yeah, yes. Okay. So, the Knight Preceptor. So, in the Knight's army, I'm assuming pure ignorance here. The Preceptor is one of the only knights that also can be a character. So, I have a loadout that I can equip a carapace weapon to. And if I have a carapace weapon, I can't run it as a character. Excellent. You're gonna love this thing. I swear to God, this is the best tool I've ever had in my life. Where was I? Oh yeah. So if I run it with a carapace weapon, I can't use it as a character because the character doesn't have one. So I just magnetized the top to it. But also, there's multiple carapace weapons you can run. Now, I wanted the missile launcher for my Preceptor because I already have the other one, which is an autocannon. But there's two different types of missiles. You have these... Oh, there it goes. These are like anti-air missiles. So any flying units that you're fighting, these are what these are for. And then you have these indirect fire ground missiles. They're larger. There's less that you're going to do per... Come on, focus. There we go. Kind of. Anyway, so I swapped them out so I can just magnetize, oh, I want my big missiles for this fight, or there's a guy with a flyer coming up. Boom. And then I can go, oh, well, if I don't want to run my normal Preceptor and I need the character model, just pop it off. And now, oh no, now it's Canis Rex, the character I want to play. And it is awesome. So, and again, sorry for yelling. The Fantic is one of the best tools to help you with magnetizing, in my opinion, because a lot of magnets are larger than your average drill bits for a pin drill. So this will help you a lot. I love this thing. And this wasn't something I bought. It was a Christmas gift for like a secret Santa. Santa. And, oh, it'll save so much money, dude. You can, if I was smart, I could magnetize a knight to be any kind of knight. It's a lot of magnetizing, but you can do it, which is great. But the one problem I have with the Fantic, and you probably can't see it very well on camera, there's a little bit down here, but you've got all of this plastic dust, and I got this little desk vacuum. And it just vacuums up all of the dust. And the best part is, like, if I suck up opened it too early. If I suck up, like, a piece of the model I want to save, I can just take it apart and then put it back together. Boom. Saves me so much time, I swear. I love this thing. So. Huh. It is very nifty. It is very, very nifty. I love these things. They work so well in tandem. Also, just got a random Discord notification. Just Discord deciding it wanted to make a noise because there's no new notification. Weird. But yeah, so now I'm just kind of working on getting my my Defender all worked up, because now one of the things my wife got me was an $800 knight model called the Acastus Knight Porphyrion. I actually did a pretty large YouTube shorts. You have 6 vacuums. I don't think my wife will appreciate the 7th. You know, you could always like, babe, it helps keep the house clean 1 square inch at a time. It's not a very big vacuum, to be fair. Anyway, I actually did a small lore series once upon a time. I say once upon, it's like last month. I was posting daily Warhammer content on YouTube Shorts. I was covering Imperial Knights for the most part, but the reason I was doing it was because I was planning on getting this Knight Porphyrion, which is a very expensive model, and my wife decided to surprise me with it as an early birthday present / apology / thank you gift, because she was recovering from surgery, and I helped take over the house and helping make sure she was comfortable and all that. And now that I have it, I'm like, oh, well, I've got to finish my Knights Army, because my whole dream was to get a hold of that model, which is my favorite model that GW makes, period. And I want to take it to the Las Vegas Open tournament. It was at the time the largest tournament for Warhammer in the world. Now I think the LVO is the 2nd largest. I think the largest now is the London GT. But I still want to take this model. I wanted to be the first person to ever bring it, but the problem is somebody last year brought it to the tournament. So I can't do a world's first, but I'm still very excited. But in order to do that, I need to build my entire Knights Army, because I need to learn how to play the game. I haven't played since 2009, 2010. Also, I apologize for the noise if this is really annoying. I'm almost done. That is the one problem with these, I have to admit, is they spin so fast that if you're not careful, you will actually melt the plastic to the drill bit. So, do be careful. Oh yeah, everybody typically is. I'm super self-conscious about it myself, but my best friend Josh, he has so many armies. He's never played either, but he's got, let's see, Black Templars, Dark Angels, Death Guard, Imperial Guard, Custodes, and that's just 40k. I can't remember now. I think that's it for 40k. He's got Stormcast Eternals for Age of Sigmar, Cities of Sigmar for Age of Sigmar. He's working on a Magakin for Age of Sigmar. And here I am with Imperial Knights and Carrigan Overlords for Age of Sigmar. Yep, that's the problem with doing that. I carved into the plastic just a little bit here. It's not the worst thing, though. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the biggest casualty is our bank accounts, for sure. He hasn't got his channel up and running, but he's actually starting a YouTube channel called Spruta Saga. And his whole thing is he wants to tell stories as he's building his models. He wants to use the models to tell the story. And the idea is every faction he builds, and every faction I build by default, is a homebrew of some kind. So the idea is, and shelf space, yeah, it's a lot. his pile of shame takes up an entire bookshelf in his bedroom. I've seen it. It's impressive. So he wants to do like all homebrew, and the idea is he wants to do a narrative campaign, like a crusade, if you will. And the idea is it's ever-evolving lore will be impacted by the games. So you can engage in diplomacy between factions to a point and basically tell stories of your homebrews in the universes of Age of Sigmar and 40k. So that's the idea of Sprue to Saga. Also, the thing he wants to do is like, if characters die, they're permanently dead because it's part of the lore of your faction. So you have to make a new character model, which I think is really cool. And the idea that he wants to do is he wants to start a Patreon and have the patrons be a part of this campaign, so they can actually like vote on directions that factions go in, or if they have a high enough tier, they can create their own generals for a faction that he's made, and like have them take part in this mini-verse of Warhammer Age of Sigmar 40k, where no matter what GW does to the lore, we still have our own little segment of that universe, and that the fans can help be a part of the direction that universe goes into. And I think that would be an insanely good idea. Channel out here. Yeah. The idea is we're working on it together, so I can help him get the idea set up. And this all started from he wanted to make a podcast together where he and I basically talk about the lore of Age of Sigmar, because there's not a lot of people talking about just like in-depth lore for the Age of Sigmar on YouTube. So we were calling it, and we've got the channel already set up, and we're working on it. And the idea, because two more white guys need a podcast, but we're calling it Encyclopedia Autistica, and he's gonna play like the host, and I'm gonna be the lore master, since I've kind of autistically deep dive in everything that I do, and use our audience there to generate these stories with these homebrew factions. It sounds like a great idea, and I can't wait to do it. Well, absolutely, man. I'm glad to have you along for the ride. I'm glad you stopped by. I've had a couple of people stop by and say hi, which is really nice. Okay, so that's that. Would help if I knew where I put my sprue. There it is. Okay. Anyway, to sound sappy, I feel lucky to have people who want to stop by, say hi, and hang out while I build a model. Because I miss this kind of experience. Not a lot of people can go to a local game store all the time, and there's not very many of them around anymore where I live. So I could drive 45 minutes out there, but I got to get up at 4:30 in the morning, and I can't stay there for as long as I want because I have responsibilities here at the house. So I thought a good compromise would be to get that local game store feeling, but just hanging out on stream while I build a model, and I can just talk to strangers and talk about this hobby we all love. No worries, please. Feel free. Go start your dinner. Yeah, I am so excited to get this Knight Defender done. I gotta figure out what kind of pose I want to do for it. kind of have an idea of what I want to do because it's got 2 guns for arm weapons, which isn't a bad thing. All the ones I have, however, currently have some sort of melee weapon, so I'm able to kind of give it this kind of feel where the melee weapon is the thing that draws the eye. On the Preceptor, it was the Thunder Gauntlet, the hand, where it's pointing, because I don't think anyone's ever done a pose with that before. And with the Knight Errant, I've got it like sprinting directly at the camera. I say camera, at the viewer. And it's got its sword held back like it's about to strike you, and I think it's just a really cool pose. But the problem is, I don't have a melee weapon to be centric with my defender. So the question is, if I can hold it together for 2 seconds. There we go. Kind of. Kind of. Right? Oh, so I have this idea. So I'm doing the Defender because... So my whole strategy for the tabletop is I have this gigantic Porphyrion model. Again, it's the one model that GW's made that I think is a perfect model. I just love the look of it. I couldn't tell you why. A lot of people think it looks ugly. It's kind of got this big industrial look. I love this model so much. And I want to use it as the centerpiece for my army, which is not competitive at all. I think they did on the most recent data slate where they showed the balancing of the Knights currently, ranked by win rate. Knights were ranked 25th place out of 28. So it's not a very good army, and if you're playing it as meta as you possibly can. That's like tournament level, 25th out of 28th place. The Porphyrion is not a competitive model. In fact, it hinders you more than it helps. Because I think the strategy right now is to armiger spam it. So you take a bunch of armigers and like 2 big knights that buff the armigers. And it's the Preceptor, which is the one I showed you with the hand earlier, and the Cerastus Knight Lancer, which is the one Cerastus Knight I do not have. It's my least favorite of the Cerastus, which sounds like I'm insulting it, but I just love all of the knights, so take that for what you will. I sound like I'm about to cry, I don't know why. The Porphyrion just is too many points. It's like 750 points right now, I think. So it's like almost half your army. But it hits like a truck, man. So, where was I going with this? Oh, right. So the idea is the Defender, see, what it does for you is it has a Void Shield. And in terms of lore, the Void Shield is like the best shield that the Imperium has to offer. So, in terms of the game, the way it works is if you have a Knight Defender, you have an invuln save, which is an invulnerable save, which is basically if you're being attacked at range, you can roll to see if you even take damage, even if they hit you. The problem being with an invuln save is that it's usually a higher percentage of failure, I think. Hold on. So the idea is they roll to hit you. If you roll like a 5 on a dive, a d6, you don't take any damage. Basically, 5 or higher. where normal saves are usually like 3, 4, depending. That's like in melee. But if you're being attacked at range, you have to take an invulnerable save, which is nice. I think, to be fair. It's been 15, 20 years since I played, so things have changed, and I'm probably being a little too elementary about it. But the Defender has a unique ability with its Void Shield. As long as it's standing in front of a target and blocking direct line of sight, it can make your invulnerable save a 4-up save. So basically you go from a 40% chance of success to a 50% chance of success just by having that model in the field. Now, the Porphyrion's a really tough model, so I'm not really worried about the Porphyrion dying per se, but anything I can do to make it a little harder to kill is, in my mind, going to be key to victory. But if I wasn't going to do a Defender, I would do a Knight Gallant, because the Gallant has the Chainsword and the Fist. Now, I don't have like a reference I can show, but excuse me, long night. But there's a story of a Knight Gallant sprinting towards an enemy tank, and the Thunderstrike Gauntlet has a disruption field generator built inside of it. It's basically like a power sword, right? And it punches through the armor of an enemy heretic tank, grabs the tank commander, and pulls him out of the tank and holds it in front of the face of the knight. And a knight has a war horn on it that sounds like a foghorn on steroids, essentially. And it blares its horn before slowly crushing the tank commander to death in its hand, which I think just sounds awesome. So, I have an idea for the Knight Gallant. Very similarly to my Knight Preceptor here, I would have to repose a lot of the fingers on it, but the idea is I wanted to grab a hold of something. I'm thinking a Nurgle Demon, just for the sake of example. Holding it up above its head and looking like it's staring at this thing as it's squeezing it to death. I think that would look sick as a model. But the Defender, I don't know what to do as far as what I want to pose it with. But I think I have an idea of what would work. And I think I'm going to have it where it's kind of mid-step. But it's got one of its feet planted on a rock, like it's stepping down off of this rock. So it looks like it's in mid-stride with one of its weapons pointed forward, like it's aiming it to shoot. Kind of basic, but it's not the pose that you normally would see with a knight, so I think it would work out pretty well to capture the eyes of people who've seen it. Imagine you're thinking you're safe in an armored vehicle and getting yoinked into a wreck like the ragdoll out of a paper box. No kidding, dude. I would love to see the look on that tank commander's face as a Knight Gallant ripped him out of that tank. I'm pretty sure, it's been a long time since I've heard the story, but I'm pretty sure he ripped him out of a Bane Blade too, which was, you know, the largest tank the Astra Militarum have. Side note, hot take, I hate the name Astra Militarum. I think Imperial Guard was a lot cooler of a name. I really can't wait to start building models with my wife. She is kind of interested in the Idenef Deepkin from Age of Sigmar, which I have to admit is a pretty cool looking model set. I like the Sea Elves. I think they're really fascinating. I cannot get her to sit down for more than maybe 5 minutes at a time. And it's not because she also doesn't enjoy necessarily building models. She's just got so much severe ADHD. I feel like I can't get her to sit down for more than 5 minutes in general. Unless she's got like an audiobook in her hand or she's playing some sort of painting game on her iPad. And I don't know if anyone else has had that experience with their spouse. But she will listen to me talk for 2 hours about the lore out of Warhammer just because she likes to hear my voice, which is nice. Kings, know your worth, alright? Find you a woman who looks at you the same way a grot would look at a yellow plane. How against 3D printing models or GW? Man. Like the Inquisition exterminating a planet, I'm not gonna lie to you. My friends regularly premium they charge, but I'd say pretty against it. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. They hate 3D printing, and they know they can't win. 3D printing is beating them. My friends frequent Cults 3D a lot, and if you know the keywords, you can find people who legitimately have really good scans and sculpts of in-game models. The problem is GW shuts them down after maybe 2 or 3 days. So, and they're pretty frequent about going on places like Coles 3D and Thingiverse and whatnot. So, they hate it. But the thing is, I don't think they can continue to fight against it for much longer. They've been caught 3D printing. It's an old like controversy, but years ago, I say years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago, there was some sort of exhibit at Warhammer World where you could actively see the layer lines of an FDM print on a whole bunch of Imperial Knights, which means they have STL files for these models. So I don't know why they don't just release the 3D models. I guarantee it's because they feel like they can't win against it, but I just think like that's just unimaginative thinking. Like, you can't control what happens with an STL file after it's been sold necessarily, unless you built in a license to it. But even if you built in a license where after you printed a file you had to pay for it again later, like if it's $20 to buy a fucking file for an Imperial Knight, I'll pay it. I don't care. Like, it's better than paying $200 for a model that when I first started getting into this hobby was maybe $120. And now it's almost $200. Armigers were $70 when I started, and now to get a box of Armigers, it's what, $90? $100? I don't even know. I haven't purchased Armigers in so long. The Armigers I have I purchased about 2-3 years ago. And at the time, I bought them off of Amazon and they were on sale, so I couldn't even tell you what GW was charging for them at the time. So, I love the universe of Warhammer, but there's an old adage I can't not think about every time. It's that nobody loves Warhammer because of GW. They love Warhammer in spite of GW. Which is a shame, because I really do love Warhammer, but they keep doing stuff where people are like, no, that's just stupid. The Terminus Decree thing that they did, where they tried to rechange the lore for the Grey Knights with the Terminus Decree, was stupid. I think we can all agree with that. Female Custodies, I'm not necessarily against the idea of female Custodies. I hate the way they did it, though, where they're like, nope, they've always existed. They've always been that way. Like, come on. Exactly. The whole in spite of GW thing, dude. Yeah, nobody loves GW. The people who say they do, I guarantee you one thing only. They're part of GW's non-paid-for creator program, where basically you get the privilege of GW essentially potentially sending you model kits. Potentially. But it's on their basis. If you don't play ball with them beforehand, you're game over. Oh yeah. I love Warhammer. I love Warhammer Fantasy. I'm starting to like Age of Sigmar. I had a massive grudge against it for a long, long time because of what happened to Warhammer Fantasy. It had nothing to do with Age of Sigmar. And I love 40k. I just love it in spite of what GW has done. What the heck? I don't know. Depends on which part you're what the hecking. I kind of went on a whole tangent there, so I apologize. I agree. They should be promoting it through creators. You know, the thing is, GW is incredibly litigious. They shut down entire fan projects. Yeah, the Emperor has a TTS device is still on indefinite hiatus because they won't allow fan creations. If it's That's what happened after the Project Astartes came out way back when. If you haven't seen the Astartes animation, you absolutely should. It's fantastic. It was a fan project. I forget the name of the guy who did it, but he is a fantastic animator. Self-animated this whole massive project. He created it for his homebrew chapter, which is the only homebrew chapter that GW has ever added into canon. Reluctantly, I might add. And ever since then, they realized, like, we're not going to be able to compete with these creators anymore. They had plans for Warhammer Plus. They wanted to do unique animations on there, and they knew that... That's what actually made me interested. Yes, Project Astartes is fantastic, and I can't wait for Astartes 2. But the problem was, GW had plans for content that they wanted to put on Warhammer Plus, and they knew they couldn't compete with fans who were making stuff on YouTube anyway. So the problem is they have all these fans who are very passionate, who are making fantastic content on YouTube for free, and GW's coming out with, what is it? Sword and Bolter or whatever? Which had terrible animation quality, and people clowned on it, and still clown on the first season, to this day, with Commissar Yark in it. And they should, because it was terrible, just in terms of animation quality. That, and finally buying Total Warhammer Trilogy. Yes, oh my god, that is the only reason Warhammer Fantasy still exists to this day. It's the only reason Warhammer the Old World is even a thing, is because of Total War Warhammer and the Warhammer Fantasy role-playing game, which is the only reason, like, it's actually grown fans because of those two products. GW realized, wow, I said that weirdly, and I said that loudly. GW realized that there was a lot more fans of Warhammer Fantasy than they originally thought after they killed Warhammer Fantasy. So they brought it back for the Old World to kind of capitalize on that nostalgia and see if people were going to be actually interested in buying this product. And it has sold like crazy. They keep selling out, but they're doing very limited runs. So they don't do large batch models like they do with 40k, but the Old World is still selling out a lot. In Age of Sigmar, unless it's the end of an edition and the beginning of another edition, just doesn't sell very well, which is a shame. Once a new edition comes out or a big new model comes out, they sell like crazy, but then they go away for a long time. 40k continuously sells. Warhammer Fantasy, or with the Old World, you could hardly find anywhere. Every game store I live near, sold out. There's no Old World content in them at all, except for the occasional rulebook, which is crazy. Oh, I'm not getting too loud at all? Good, okay, because in my ears, it sounds like I'm blowing out the microphone. So that's good. But yeah, so you've got like Warhammer the Old World, which is selling like absolute crazy, and for whatever reason, GW hardly ever recognizes it, or they don't talk about it very much. Obviously they had like the Grand Cathay stuff that's come out recently. They finally finished the Grand Cathay Army stuff, which is great. I love that. Which is awesome, because I was always worried that when they said that they weren't going to be doing Grand Cathay and Kislev for it, I was very disappointed. And then they just decided out of nowhere, oh yeah, by the way, Grand Cathay is still coming out. But the way that they've been releasing for Warhammer the Old World is weird, because they didn't release it with the poster boy factions. They released it with Bretonia and Tomb Kings. Now, I know you're relatively new to 40k, but let me just give you an example here. Everybody loves Space Marines. Space Marines are the poster boys for 40k, right? They are the ones that sell the most. Every time a new release comes out, they also have to give Space Marines a release, because that's what moves the needle. Now imagine you getting involved in this hobby, and you see that they're about to launch a new edition of 40k, and instead of coming out with a Space Marine box and another faction, which they always do, imagine that they came out with instead an Astra Militarum kill team. Kislev's the faction. Kislev is so freaking cool. I love Kislev. Kislev and the Empire are peak design for Warhammer, period. I will die on that hill. I don't care what anyone else says out there. The Empire and Kislev, chef's kiss. But imagine instead they came out with a new Astra Militarum set, but it's with only abhuman mutants, so only like Ogryns, Ratlings, and all of that, and a specific new dynasty of Necrons, and that's it. You have a new dynasty of Necrons and a new faction of Astra Militarum, and that's all they release with. No Space Marines, no Orcs, no Chaos. That's what it was kind of like when Warhammer the Old World first came out, which was devastating to me. And then they continue to release, or re-release, I should say, models for Warhammer the Old World, which I thoroughly enjoy, but 90% of them are sculpts from, you know, the early 2000s, like 2002, 2004, somewhere in that frame, which is a bit of a shame. But then you have Grand Cathay coming out of nowhere, which is all brand new sculpts, because they've never had any Grand Cathay, and I have to admit, models look pretty freaking sexy to me. But we still got no love for the faction that created Warhammer. I mean, the game is called Warhammer because of the Warhammer Galmaraz, wielded by the Empire of Man. Like, Karl Franz wields the hammer, or a replica, I should say, but the hammer of Sigmar that the game is named after. But we can't get any updated information on the Old World. We have no idea if another edition is going to be coming out at all. We assume there's no presence for it at any of the major tournaments that they host. They had no Warhammer the Old World tournament at the Warhammer World Championships. No Old World at the London GT. But it's one of the best-selling game systems that they have right now. It's nowhere near as big as 40k, and probably nowhere near as big as AOS, but every time it comes into stock, it sells out. I can't imagine the last time anything Age of Sigmar sold out nearby, at least to me. So, like, all my local game stores have everything filled to the brim with Age of Sigmar stuff. I guarantee you that'll change when the new edition comes out for AOS next year. But for the time being, it's still the same. So, why don't they ever acknowledge it? It just kind of annoys me. Because without Warhammer Fantasy, you wouldn't have 40k, you wouldn't have Games Workshop. So, why do they constantly treat it like the redheaded stepchild? And I don't understand. To be fair, I think a lot of my frustration comes from the fact that my first exposure to Warhammer was Warhammer Fantasy. And by the time I had a big boy job where I could afford to get into Warhammer... Oop, I'm spilling sprue goo all over my desk. By the time I was able to get into Warhammer Fantasy, they literally, that same year, they killed it off and brought in AOS. Which soured my taste for AOS. Now that they brought the Old World, though, I've kind of softened on AOS, because I was never really angry at the game. I was angry at GW for what they did to it, which is a shame, because I didn't even give it the chance that it needed. Damn it. That's what I get for being in a rush. I'm spilling my goo all over the table, man. This is not fun. You know what's funny? That would be pretty upsetting. Yeah, especially when you get goo all over your hands and it's covered all over your table. I mean, they tell you never to goo in front of other people either. So, that's what I get for not paying attention. What's funny about the whole thing, though, is, thank you. It wasn't a funny joke, but I appreciate you laughing. What's funny about the whole thing when it comes to Age of Sigmar to me is I feel like they don't understand the people who liked Warhammer Fantasy, and I think that they've moved away from it by going into let's just make 40K, but going on camera for strangers. Like, thank you. What's funny about the whole thing, like I was saying though, is like they clearly wanted to just go for fantasy 40K, which is fine, you know. But what made Warhammer Fantasy so good and why people were so vitriolic against Age of Sigmar when it first came out was the faction of humanity in fantasy were just people. Like, it was literally a dude with a spear fighting back against the horde of orcs or beastmen, which represented... Wow, I went into a voice there. Which represented chaos. And it was just a dude. You're just a farmer who'd show up with a spear and fight on the front lines. And it was just the average person. And they were the heroes of Warhammer Fantasy. And then in 40K, you have Space Marines, which are the poster boys. And they're massively souped up super soldiers in power armor that fight against the forces of evil. And they became the poster boys. But when you transition from the universe of Warhammer Fantasy, which went through its apocalypse, which created AOS, what they did was they still had normal humans as the cities of Sigmar, but they shifted focus for the good guys to be the Stormcast Eternals. And I think the Stormcast Eternals are fine, I suppose. They've gotten better as the game has moved on, but the problem with the Stormcast Eternals, as far as I see, is they are just souped up super soldiers in powerful armor that fight against the forces of evil. They're just Space Marines again. Especially when the models were first came out, they were the same scale, the same bulkiness of Space Marines. They just had slightly less rounded edges. Now they've updated them a little bit, and they've slimmed them. They look more like they wanted an army of Doom guys. Yes, immortal Doom guys. That's the best part, because you can't kill a Stormcast. When they die, they just come back again. So, they basically created the Space Marines again for fantasy, and I think they kind of missed the whole mark. People call them Sigmarines instead of Stormcast. They're just Sigmarines, which is hilarious. But they have an interesting draw. But when they had the cities of Sigmar, I think they should have become the heart of the setting. The Stormcast, I think, have their place, especially since they've gotten better as it's gone on, but I don't know. My friend Josh loves Stormcasts. He's building an army of Stormcasts right now that he's working on a video for Sprue Saga. And I shouldn't talk too much shit because he really, really likes the Stormcast. He just thinks they're really, really cool. And I never want my opinion to Sigmarines sounds like such an insult. Yes, it is. It is. Because that's exactly what they were when they first came out. They, like I said, they've gotten better, but they straight up were just fantasy Space Marines. If I had pictures, I could show you the first edition Space Marines. I have to use that on my Marine buddies. Excellent. Well, firstly, thank you for your service. And you absolutely should. But yeah. They looked exactly like Space Marines. I'm not even kidding. They had different shoulder pads, and that was about it. And they used hammers instead of chain swords. But they were straight up just the same exact scale as Space Marines, and since then they've fixed it. But the damage is done now, so that's all people see that aren't huge Age of Sigmar fans, which is a shame, because I feel like the game should stand on its own merits. But I'm also the jackass that didn't give it a shot because they killed Warhammer Fantasy. Okie dokie. Oh man, I just realized something. You'll get a kick out of this. Give me like 45 seconds. I'll be right back. Do you spy a Necron skull? Where? I don't have anything here that looks Necron. You might be seeing some sprue pieces. I have Necrons, actually. It's actually one of the things I'm going to be using for basing for some of this stuff, is I actually have a death sight that I'm going to be carving up. This is what I went to grab. I'm a little out of breath. I had to run around a puppy who was sprinting between my legs, and it was a little awkward. This is my very big, very expensive $800 knight that my wife bought me. The reason I bring this up is at the end of this month, I'll be streaming, building, and putting this together. This is the waist on the model sheet you had a few minutes ago. Oh, yeah, no, it was a piece of sprue. I have Necrons. They're actually down here below my desk, but I haven't pulled them out. So, but I do have a bunch. I have the Combat Patrol. So I'm gonna be taking the Death Scythe I have. I'm gonna be cutting it in half with this to do for a base for one of my knights, and I think it'll look really cool. Anyway, so this is the waist. Ooh, there it goes. This is the waist of a Knight Questoris, which is the knight that I'm currently building. It's a pretty decent sized piece. It belongs to a model this big, so it's pretty well scaled. This is the same piece for my Knight Porphyrion. This is significantly bigger than this. This is going to be freaking huge. If this makes this, I can only imagine, because I haven't seen it physically myself, how big this is going to be. I am so excited. I've got to do so much work at the end of the month because I have to wash all the pieces. And it's hard to see here on camera. Oh, you can kind of see. There's some imperfections in here in the grading from the resin I have to clean up. Oh, it's going to be huge. I can't wait. There's a few imperfections here and around, but I have to wash this in warm, soapy water. Why did I say it like water? Anyway, I have to wash it in warm, soapy water to get all the mold release off. Right? Yeah. So, like I said, this belongs to this. I think this is going to easily be, I don't know how big of a scale you'd say this is. Twice as big, maybe. But it's gonna be huge. I can't wait. So I gotta wash it, and then I've got to cut all the sprue gates off. Now it's hard to tell. This will actually help you visualize this a little bit better. So you've got the carapace here. This is this whole turtle shell looking piece over the top of the knife. This is the turtle shell piece that goes over the top of the big one. It devours this thing. I mean, this thing is huge. I cannot wait. I'm so excited. I may be like one of 2,000 or 3,000 people that own one of these. It's gonna be so cool. I'm stoked. I know. I'm so excited. It's gonna be, it's gonna be massive. Normally when you buy a Titan, so it's a much bigger model than that. When you buy a Titan from GW, you not only get one of these. Now this is a guide to building resin models is what it is. So it walks you through what you need, the techniques that you need to do, checking, cleaning, casting gates, all of that stuff. It's really nice. It tells you how to fix warped pieces, just in case you need to, or if you need to warp pieces. You say what is a blank? You're not wrong. Normally you get a certificate of authenticity when you buy a massive model. This is not big enough to constitute that, but I do have the initials and of the employee and the date that this model was inspected, which is freaking cool. I want to frame this along with the instructions that I got for it because they look so freaking cool. I cannot wait. I have a paint scheme already picked out for my homebrew night house. I'm so excited, but I have to wait because these are still very fragile, and I don't want my wife's cat to knock it off the desk. But yeah, check this out. So here's the carapace. This is just the guns, the main guns. Armor plating. Legs. Torso. And cables. All in all, there's about 20 pounds of resin on my desk right now. Oh, it's exciting. I can't wait. I know. It's crazy. I can't wait. This is going to be so huge. I mean, just alone. I mean, look at this. This is... Oh yeah. I've got the super glue. I've got all the stuff I need for it. This is just the barrel of the gun, of one of the guns. I did the measurements. This is an official Games Workshop measurement. This is 3 Space Marines tall. It's 3 Space Marines tall. It's insane. I cannot wait. It'll be so nice. After I get this model done, I have one more to do. And then after that, the big one, which I'm taking a week off of work to do. I gotta wash everything in the bathtub. I actually have, like, purchased my own toothbrush just to wash this with. So, I am so ready. This is gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be a lot of super gluing and cussing, I'm sure, but the end result cannot be understated. rushed my knight errant. Oops. So I need 67 and 66. Okay. 67 and 66. This is the wrong sprue. I'm dumb. You being a good hog? Huh? You being a good boy? The puppy came to sit at my feet. It's very cute. Okay, well, now I've cluttered my entire space with my knights. Alright. There it is. 67 and 66. Yeah, no worries. When you're done, you gotta let me know what you made. Okie dokie. Let's knock this bad boy out. YouTube, are you okay? That is not what I asked you to do, YouTube. There we go. Okie dokie. So, gonna get this done. Definitely feeling for the custom pose. Definitely stepping down off of rocks, I think. I might go with something dynamic based off of a western or something. I just kind of get the vibe if you're rocking with two ranged weapons, you gotta go cowboys in some way, shape, or form. One of my favorite westerns of all time, Silverado. I think it was 1979, I think, with a young Kevin Costner. He always rocked with two pistols in that film. I always really liked it. Speaking of westerns, holy moly, I have to say, I am a little more than concerned. Doritos chicken casserole. Ooh. That sounds really good. Bet the kiddos will like that. I don't know what goes into that, but that sounds fantastic right now. I'm super hungry. I haven't had anything to eat for dinner yet, and I haven't been able to cook dinner for like a week. Which is a shame, because I'm a professional chef, but my wife has some autoimmune issues. And right now, the smell of anything warm and food make her feel not so good. And by not so good, I mean I'm playing loud music when she goes to the bathroom, because she is not a very quiet puker. You know, one of my favorite things when I was a kid that my mother always made as an easy sort of kind of struggle meal was chicken and rice casserole. To this day, I will eat the dog mess out of some chicken and rice casserole, but I want the struggle meal version. And she always tries to make it fancy by adding vegetables, broccoli and peas and do different kind of rice. No. I want white rice, overcooked chicken, celery, onions, cream of soup. I think she used to do cream of celery, but you can do cream of onion or cream of mushroom. I don't care. And white rice. I love it. Rotisserie chicken, mac and cheese, and Doritos on top. Oh, that sounds so good. Oh man, I'm gonna have to keep that in mind. My wife might actually eat that when she feels better, because she doesn't like it when I cook fancy chef shit. She prefers me making simple meals. Damn, that sounds really good. Actually, I might go buy myself a rotisserie chicken when I'm done and make that. That sounds really good. That's what I told my mother. Excuse me, that's not a sentence I just said. That's what I told my mother I wanted for my birthday this year, was that struggle meal chicken and rice casserole. I told her if you put any vegetables in it that is not celery or onions, I swear to God. She looked at me and just goes, okay. Are you sure? I'm like, yes, this is what I want. I want anyone else who's not a member of this family to see this meal and go, man, you guys must be on some hard times right now. And I always have to put way too much salt and way too much pepper over the top of it, because that's what I used to do when I was a kid. It's my favorite meal my mother makes, period. You know, I didn't know how I would feel about this Dungeon Synth playlist in the background. This is really freaking nice, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how it comes across on stream. I tried not to make it overly loud. I just wanted something kind of quiet in the background. But I've got it playing in my ears, and it's really nice. Very chill. Absolutely. You know, my wife, she really doesn't like the gluing of models together, but she always asks me why I do it so much. I'm gonna be honest with you, it's like meditation for me. I just sit here and zen out, work on some plastic. Sometimes I get a little too complacent, and then I ruin some small details and stuff, and then I get pissed, but it just keeps me centered. I love doing this stuff. Here's an interesting story. I feel like this is a good, interesting story. It's one of my mother's favorite stories that I tell. When I used to work in catering, and I live in Oklahoma, and there was a lot of movie shoots that came to Oklahoma a few years ago. I guess they offered some tax break incentives or something. So I used to work for a catering company called Self-Made Catering. The owner's last name was Self, spelled with a PH, so he was being cute with the name. And we would do a lot of different movie shoots, and I really loved that job. I really, really loved that job. And funnily enough, technically, I think I'm still employed by that company, because I never got fired. I think he just stopped working, which is a shame. But we used to do a bunch of movie shoots around, and I've worked on some like Lifetime movies and some made-for-TV movies and whatnot. But we did one movie shoot that had Danny Trejo. Danny Trejo was producing some movie. I've never seen it. I kind of want to. I've never been able to find it. he was playing, like, I think a convict that got out of jail, and it was set in Texas, and there's, like, the cartel coming from over the border that's having a fight with this family that owned a ranch in Texas, considering I live in Oklahoma. But the twist was the cartel killed him, but he got brought back to life as a zombie, I think. And Pedro from Napoleon Dynamite, I forget the actor's name, he was a really nice guy. He plays like this cartel boss who also gets turned into a zombie. And I'm working the shoot, and I'm working really late at night. And what's funny about the whole thing is I think I'd work from I had to be there by 4 in the morning, and it's like 3 hours away. So I'm getting up at 1 o'clock in the morning to drive all the way out to this farm in the middle of rural Oklahoma, and I had to get there by 4 to set up for breakfast and shoots and all that. And we did one late night shoot where I got there at 4 p.m., but I was there until about 2 a.m. And we were making dinner, and we made tacos al pastor, and Danny Trejo comes up to the trailer, and he is in full zombie outfit, and he is talking to the owner, my boss at the time, and he was talking to him, and we handed him his plate of food, and he had come back, and he's like talking to the boss. He's like, "Oh man, I love these tacos. They're really good. I love the fact that you guys put a lot of cheese on it. It's great. This is fantastic food. I really like these tacos al pastor." But the entire time he's talking, he's reaching in through the window around the corner and grabs a brownie in the window, and then slowly pulls his hand back, and he doesn't notice the entire time I'm staring at him. And he turns and he looks at me, and he's got this deer in the headlights look in his eyes. And he looks at me, and I look at him, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and he just goes, "I'm gonna take this fucking brownie." And I said, "Danny, we have a whole bunch of them. I'll give you as many brownies as you want." I was like, "It's your shoot. You paid for it." But it's my favorite story. He just like leaning in, and he looked like a kid with his hand in the cookie jar going, "I'm gonna take this fucking brownie." I'm like, "All right, Danny. Do whatever you want to do, man. I ain't gonna tell you no." I'm making like $10 an hour. You're rich. Please be my guest. So anyway, that's one of my mom's favorite stories. It's just him reaching in through the window and then telling me that he's gonna take this brownie. I'm like, "All right, bro. I ain't gonna stop you. You think I'm made of? I'm working for $10 an hour. I'm not gonna fight Danny Trejo." Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, it's crazy. I've met a few famous people. Danny Trejo is probably the most famous person I've met. Met the guy from the janitor from Scrubs in the middle, and the woman who played his wife on that show. They were making some movie that was called, at the time, it was called Enslaved by Ducks. Then it was turned into Bob and Amy, and then it turned into something else. I forget. But I was on that shoot, and that was a lot of fun. I would like to say I met Leonardo DiCaprio. I was 50 feet from Leonardo DiCaprio. They were shooting in Guthrie, Oklahoma, and that was when they were doing the Killers of the Flower Moon. And we kind of got fired from that job. But not because of what we were doing. They insisted they wanted to hire Native American caterers, since it's a movie about Native Americans. Which, I mean, I get. But, kind of sucked. But I was within 50 feet of him. I briefly met Robert De Niro. He was kind of an asshole, but he was also incredibly busy, so I don't think I can say too much negative about Robert De Niro. He just wasn't overly nice. did the Reagan movie? What was his name? Dennis Quaid? I've met Dennis Quaid. Anyone else I can think of? No, I think that's it. I think that's pretty much everybody I've met. Yeah, that'll be good. That'll be good right there, I think. Alright. Sorry, doing a lot of measuring there. Let's see. My culinary school stories, however, are my favorite. I don't think I can say some of the words that were used in the story, so it makes the punchlines kind of inert. But I went to school with a guy named Tristan. Tristan was... he was an interesting character. Pretty sure he had fried his brain years ago on hardcore drugs. And I'm not saying that, like, rudely. He mentioned he was a former drug addict. But pretty sure he fried every brain cell in his head, and I'm pretty sure his former addiction wasn't so former. This man was not firing on all cylinders and was not the smartest man I've ever met. There was one time we used to have like roundups at the end of class where our chef would have us line up at the front of the class, and we'd tell him what we learned in class that day and like what techniques, and kind of just shoot the shit essentially. Make sure we were paying attention. And this man, every single time, would raise his hand and, like, sway back and forth like he was so excited to be called upon, like he knew the answer. Right? But every time he got called upon, straight up, he would sit there and just say, like, for, like, 10 seconds. And then say the most inane, vapid shit you've ever heard. My favorite is we had a whole week dedicated to eggs. And it was more classical, French cooking, so eggs are not fun. And I must have gone through an entire case of eggs by myself, because I could not make, like, my eggs the way he wanted me to. I either slightly overcooked them, or slightly undercooked them. It drove me crazy. I hated working on eggs during egg week. My chef repeatedly would call upon him to answer. And what was the funniest thing is during egg week, everyone's giving like really in-depth answers, everyone's talking about it, and he literally goes, when he gets called upon, he goes, something about cracking an egg. And my chef would, I watched a 45-year-old man facepalm in the middle of class. And they'd be like, yeah, you cracked an egg and you put it in water to poach it, and you had to use a little bit of vinegar. And Tristan's like, yeah, all that. Yeah, I cracked an egg. And I'm like, thank you, Tristan. This has been very informative conversation. There was a week where he was gone all week, and everyone didn't know what happened. They thought he kind of, maybe he dropped out, maybe he just vanished off the face of the earth, maybe he got arrested. No idea what happened. He came back the next week. I was standing in the middle of my walk-in fridge in class. I was gathering up the ingredients I needed for the recipe that day. And this man, we had made pickles the week before, and there's jars of them. One from every student in class on one shelf in the fridge. This man walks in. I'm standing there. I'm not paying attention. Walks in. Grabs a container that's labeled fresh dill, shoves his entire face into this container, and takes the loudest, deepest breath he possibly could. Lets out a massive sigh and goes, "Man, that sounds surprisingly like pickles." Oops. And I looked at him and I said, "Tristan, that's because they're called dill pickles." And he goes, "Yeah, but if you didn't know that, you'd be all like, bro." I didn't know what to do with that. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to my station now. I tell my dad that story, and he still looks at me randomly, just goes, "Pickles, man." Just dill smells surprisingly like pickles. That's something I never thought I'd ever hear in my life. There was one other time at the end of class, Chef was talking about something, and there was a fellow classmate of mine named Timby. And Timby was a shorter Asian man, very funny, very racist man, mostly against white people. And he asked the chef one day, just randomly in the middle of the roundup, and goes, "Have you ever heard of balut?" And he's like, "I don't think I have." And Timby starts to describe it, and he's like, "Oh, those are those half-fertilized chicken eggs." And my chef's like, "Oh, I don't think I could ever eat that." And he's describing it in vivid detail of, you see the beaks and the feathers and the eyes, and then without skipping a beat, Tristan turns around and goes, "Oh, like a hamburger." I kid you not, there was silence in that entire kitchen as everyone turned and faced Tristan, and knocked my light off, and I said out loud, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, you know, because it used to be all like walking around and stuff." And I'm sitting there and I'm like, "Tristan, it's a chicken inside of an egg. It's never walked around." And he looked me dead in the eye. It was like, "Oh, okay." Like, what? I miss that man. I miss Tristan. I don't miss being in class with him, but I miss the stories and the enjoyment I got after the fact, to be fair. Okay, let's see, what other piece do I need? I'm gonna have to do the feet last, I think, because I'm gonna have to break the toes off. Alrighty. My other favorite story with Tristan, well, one of my other favorite stories, because I don't think I can tell the other one on YouTube, is we get sent to the school's private restaurant. Apparently, I was really sick at the time, and apparently my class had helped the class in the restaurant while they were super short-staffed because a lot of students had called out for getting sick. And this was before COVID, like just before COVID, and they were going to thank us for sending us down there, and we were just going to have a meal in the restaurant. So we sit down, and I guess people had conspired to make me sit next to Tristan. I must have pissed somebody off. And at the time, I was reading a book series that was the Dresden Files. And I'm sitting there, and he sits next to me, And I'm reading the Dresden Files, and he's talks to me. He's like, "Hey man, what you reading?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm reading a book called The Dresden Files." He goes, "Oh, okay. What's that about?" I was like, "Well, it's about a wizard in 1990s Chicago who solves crimes like a detective." And he goes, "Oh man," and he leans in real close, and he smelled like cigarettes. I remember that. He leans in, and he goes, "You believe in magic?" And I said, "No, not really." And he goes, "Oh man, you don't?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "I know a warlock." And I just sat there and I was like, "What? You know a warlock?" And he goes, "Yeah, man. You even look at him funny, man? He'll cast a spell on you. He'll take you out." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Yeah, man. Someone one time made fun of him. We ain't seen him for 3 years." I was like, "Okay." And they all, in my mind, I'm like, he's casting a spell on me, but you never said he used magic to kill somebody. So I'm sitting there the entire time, like it's just this dude with a Glock in one hand going, "Abracadabra, motherfucker." Just shooting bullets at somebody. And he never explained it. That's the last time I ever spoke to him, was he knows a warlock. And I told everybody, like, don't mess with Tristan, man. He knows a warlock. Last I heard, I think he was arrested in Texas. I wish I knew what happened to him. I wish I knew the story. I'm sure it would be a wild tale to tell. Okay. Get these trimmed down. Okie dokie. Here we go. So that was the last time I had seen Tristan. It's been a long time. Good stories, though. There we go. I have to wait for the sprue goo to dry. And the legs will be nice and sturdy. Oh, damn it. Should not have touched that. There we go. I feel like my fingerprint never happened. I think it'll be a nice pose. I think I'll have him stepping down from a rock or something on his base. It'll look really good. I'll have to do the feet probably last, because I'll need to balance that with the rock on the base. But that'll be fine. Alright, this Knight Defender's coming along so far. Nice custom base. Custom pose, excuse me, but there will be a custom base to go with the custom pose. I'm excited. This Defender's gonna look really, really good. I'm almost at a Coke Zero. Okay. So the next piece will need to be these actuators here. Like how I threw out that term, like I know what an actuator is. That sounds right, though. And last piece. There we go. Now on these smaller pieces here, I always find the sprue gate pieces are the worst part to trim because you have to be very careful how much plastic you cut away. And I find the best method is to keep the two pieces attached at all times because you can accidentally cut into the very fine edge of those 90 degrees on the half. And I think when you do that, you can really ruin the overall shape of the model piece that you're working with. So, by keeping it together, whatever side you shave down will be mirrored on the other side, which is really nice. Yeah, it looks like it's showing up okay on camera. These are so small when it comes to the actual pieces themselves that I worry about whether or not they'll actually show up, because I've got really fat fingers. That's because I'm fat, but I am working on that. Not that anyone here will necessarily care, but I am down almost 40 pounds since December of last year. Which is awesome. Son of a bitch. There we go. Okay. So, now time for my least favorite part of this whole part. Is these tiny pieces I have to glue together and then get attached to the groin of my knight. And the problem I have with that is I have to use tweezers. And I hate using tweezers because I suck at it. To those of you just tuning in, I appreciate it. Just putting on the final touches here for the legs of my Questoris Knight Defender. I will gladly showcase everything I've got so far, which is not much, I am afraid. But that's the problem with these Titanic models, is you can put in hours of work for, relatively speaking, what seems to be very little progress. But just because I can't knock out 90 Space Marines in 2 hours does not make this any less productive. There we go. One groin actuator pretty much down. Nope. I should have left it alone. I should have left it alone. I did not. There we go. That'll work. Haha! know if I'm the one that's not smart enough to figure this out or not. Maybe I am the odd one out, or maybe this is a common complaint. But dear Lord, there is so much happening on these sprues. Sometimes I can't find the piece that I'm looking for. And there's just so much to worry about. Okay. So, still waiting on the glue to dry. Separated the shins from the thigh pieces. You can still see a little bit of the sprue goo down in there where I've cut into it. Same thing with this leg, although it's actually, sprue goo's holding pretty good so far. Should be fine. Okay. Almost stabbed myself in the palm. That would not be good. There we go. Just gonna trim that down a little bit. Probably don't need to be that much of a perfectionist. This piece isn't going to be very visible considering where it goes, but I'm going to know it's there. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I make it look as nice as I can. Alright. I don't think I'm going to take it apart this time. That was a mistake, I think. But I will just go ahead and slather a good amount. Say slather. Plastic cement. Not with these. These would be better. Okay. Now to got a good base there. Just trim these down a little bit. Okay. Now, let's get you glued in. What do you say? Yep, that's what I feared. Okay. This is a little too long, so I'm going to match the angle and trim it down as best I can. I have had to do this on my Preceptor, and I had to trim quite a bit of the actuator down, and that's perfect. Ah, first try. Well, technically second, but first try after trimming it. Which is all I care about. There we go. Alright. That's leg actuators in, or groinal actuators in. That is shins down. I've got the mounts for the leg carapace, which I hesitate to put on. But so that piece that we just put on, it's hard to tell on this one, which is good. That's kind of the whole point. Was I had to trim this leg actuator that you could barely see in there. I had to trim it down so much that I had to break this cable in half. Oh, there we go. It's a little better. I had to break that cable in half, and I had to re-glue it back down so it could keep the arc where it wasn't obviously broken. That took way more work than it should have, but I think the custom pose speaks for itself. I think it looks fantastic. I also love, it's kind of hard to tell on this camera, unfortunately, I'm really sorry for the focus, but the posing I had to do on the fingers, I had to cut these fingers apart. Will it focus? No? Okay. I had to break these fingers apart and repose them because they were all stiff. This must have taken me at least 3 hours to do, and that was just all 3 fingers. But I got it done. I'm very proud of it. And then, of course, my first ever Questoris Knight that I ever built was my Knight Errant. And I love this pose. Oh, the high knee sprint. I know the piston here on the arm is exposed and it's not supposed to be, but once you put the shoulder pad on after it's painted, you won't be able to tell. But look at that. I mean, the results, I think, speak for themselves. I mean, that sprinting pose, the sword out like it's about to attack you. Ah, gorgeous. But I can't just leave well enough alone. I always have to do some kind of custom pose, because in my mind, if you're an excellent painter, you can make any model look good. If you suck at painting, like I do, I think the pose really does help with that. If you have a really nice pose, people aren't really going to notice the paint job that you think is eh. They're going to look at a knight that they've never seen before. And I think that's the really cool part about this whole thing. So, we've made good progress. I think we made pretty good progress tonight. Getting the legs done. Well, mostly done. I gotta do the actual armor plating on the legs. But in order to do that, I have to do the pistons. And in order to do that, I need to get the feet on. And in order to get those done, I have to repose the toes. So, I think for tonight, this is good enough. I will come back and do the cables probably later. Probably do it tomorrow, if I had to hazard a guess. And I would love to do that again here on stream. But I think for tonight, I'm going to have to call it. I do have work in the morning, and I have to go to bed here in 35 minutes. So, sorry to say that I had to cut the stream shorter than I wanted to, since I had a lot of technical issues. But thank you, everybody who tuned in. I greatly appreciate it, and I hope to see you guys moving forward. So, I appreciate you all for watching this long. If you liked what you saw, please feel free to leave a like or subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. If you didn't like what you saw, I greatly appreciate you for watching this far, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.